Welcome to We're All Gonna Die, the first episode of the We're All Gonna Die podcast, hosted by myself, Isaac Jakobs. Now, a bit of a grey title, bit of a dark title, bit morbid, but of course, rest assured, that is not the case. The purpose of the podcast very much to embrace the mortality and seize the present and live in the present moment. My father died when I was 14, and I had a very early experience with morality in this. We're going to dive straight into the deep end here. My father was killed in an accident, and that really shaped my view on morality and made me aware of what was going on in the world, and that death is really around every corner, and it can hit you when you're not expecting it, and not just people around you, it can hit you. Recently coming out of a 5-year relationship, and that's a whole nother story, but 5 years is a long time, and it feels like it's really sped by. I remember my 21st birthday like it was yesterday, and that was almost 5 years ago. And other than my work and trying to build this relationship, which has now ended, I really feel like I don't have a lot to show for the last fifth of my life. Even the last 8.5 years since finishing high school, I really have nothing to show for it. I think that I'd like to show more for it, and it's hard to have so many ideas and not execute them. And that's very much what I'd like to talk to you about. And that's the purpose of this podcast. Too many people talk about doing things and not enough people do them. It's a fucking cliche, but it's the absolute truth. Life is short. And a callback to 2012, YOLO is very much the case. Carpe diem, seize the day. It's all the same shit, saying the same thing. You've got books about self-help. You've got songs about, encouragement. You've got speakers that you're going to see and motivational people. At the end of the day, what does it boil down to? It boils down to being present in the current moment, and furthermore, manifesting, whether or not you believe in manifesting, but if you identify something in which you want to do and you don't do it, that's a choice that you're making against yourself. So you've got to be aware of that. Okay, let's talk about mortality. Mortality. New Zealand's average age is 82 years old. In the United States, health is a bit worse. Their average age is 77. And across the world, 72 years old. In New Zealand, we're super privileged with our country. As stressed as the healthcare system is, it must be doing something right. But in the grand scheme of things, 82 years is really not that long. It's 980 months. It's 4,200 weeks. It's 30,000 days, 700,000 hours. I myself am 25 years old, and that's almost a third of the way through my life. A third. I'm a third of the way through my life, and I haven't really done anything with it. No one really talks about this. You hear it all the time around birthdays. It's all downhill from here. Life's busy. Things get in the way. The work, relax, sleep loop is really how the bulk of us spend our entire lives. And there's a certain discomfort when talking about death. The Kiwi's attitude is, she'll be right. And that encourages us not to think about the inevitable end. It's this fear of the unknown. It's the sadness associated with death that causes us to skip over it. But this podcast isn't trying to be morbid. It isn't trying to remind you that you're going to die. It is trying to remind you that you're going to die, but in a positive manner. The purpose very much to acknowledge our mortality. It's hard, but it shouldn't have to be. It should be a reminder that our time is precious and that we need to prioritize ourselves, seeking out clarity, seeking out purpose, and seeking out fulfillment. By embracing our mortality, we gain a deeper appreciation for the present moment and the experiences, the relationships, and the opportunities that are available to us right here, right now. It motivates us to make the most of our lives, pursue our passions, take risks, and overcome the fear of failure and the fear of judgment. By acknowledging our mortality, it can lead to more meaningful connections with others as we realize the importance of cherishing and nurturing those relationships while we still have the chance. Do you ever just sit down in a quiet moment between the grind of daily life, between scrolling Netflix and maybe picking up your phone, those little moments where you think back to a good memory and you think to yourself, man, that was a great time. That was such an awesome experience. How many of your memories aren't great because they were clouded with other shit in your life? What were you thinking right then and there in that present moment you're at the beach with friends, you're laughing, you're enjoying a cold drink, but you feel distant, you're worried about work or money or something, and then the moment passes and you get back home and you feel like you missed out on something that day. You can't put your finger on what it is. You can't figure out that your problem was you in your own mind, being elsewhere. You weren't present. You might look on that beach day and think, wow, that felt fun, but it didn't hit right. It didn't feel the way it should. Maybe you felt distant because you probably were. Sometimes a thing that will stop us from living in the present moment is that fear of judgment, that fear of failure. Like we talked about, I'm very much experiencing it right in this moment in recording this podcast. And as I put this out, as I write this content, as I record this video, as I record this podcast, I fear the judgment. I fear the failure. I fear the hypocrisy that I might be being and saying some of these things with some of my past choices and past actions and past decisions. But that's one of the things that we love to do as people, isn't it? We love to worry about the past. We feel that the past somehow defines who we are. Most of us have an idea in our minds of who we are and who we want to be, and we abide by some set of principles, we abide by some set of morals or rules, and we want to be that ideal version of ourselves, and that's great. But when that ideal version of ourselves is morphed by other people's opinions and not by our own true desires, that's going to be a barrier to us being present and enjoying our lives on a day-to-day basis. The beauty of this ideal person is that if things aren't working now, or you're feeling not at ease about things, you're not feeling passionate, you're not feeling happy, you're not feeling upbeat or good, you can change these principles. You can chop and change them. You can remove things. You can cut things out entirely. You can add things in. You can really reinvent the person that you are. You can really reinvent the person who you want to be. And you can reinvent how you want to be seen just by changing little things. But it starts from within first. Our past actions, our past decisions and judgments, they've got us to where we are today. But there's no use dwelling on them, because unless someone cracks time travel, they're stuck in the past and you can't change them. So my past decisions, actions, some of the bad things I've done, some of the shit things and dumb things that I've done, I can't change them. So why dwell on them? Why let them hold me down as a person? I can't go back and change them. Maybe I would if I could, who knows? Everyone likes to say that we would be better if we could do it all over, but life gets in the way and you do the best you can with what you have. There's a story that I'd like to share with you that really sort of opened my eyes and got me living in the beauty of the present moment. It really got me aware and on board. I'm going to read some footnotes here from this story, but everyone's heard of monks. Imagine a monk. He's looking out over the courtyard. His eyes are closed. He's trying to meditate. He's trying to be present. But there were sounds in the courtyard. There were kids that came to visit the monastery, and they annoyed him. He couldn't be mindful of all the noise. So the monk gets up and he goes to the master. He makes his way to the master. The master, he's in the courtyard. He's teaching the kids about meditation, and the kids were really attentively listening. So the monk waited for the master to be finished, and then he stepped up and he said, "Master, I really can't seem to experience this presence of mind we were talking about the other day. Why can't I be more present? Why can't I?" And the master, he smiles, he looks at the monk, he says, "Why do you think you aren't living in the present moment?" And the monk sort of looked around and he was trying to think of what to say. He says, "I can't seem to be more present because I keep noticing my mind wander away in thought. Besides, all the noises of the kids in the courtyard were disturbing my peace as well. That's why I can't be more present." The master looks away and he sees one of the kids running around the field, the kids playing with the grass, the kids dancing happily, joyously, fun. "Do you see that child?" "Of course I see that child." He was unsure of what the master was trying to say. "Does the kid look mindful to you?" In other words, is she living in the present moment? Well, yeah, the monk says, yeah, she seems happy, she seems free. After all, she's a child. She has no speck of worry on her mind. So the master says, then why do you still think that you aren't living in the present moment? If even a child can do it, why can't you do it? The monk didn't wait for an answer before continuing. He continued and said, the child doesn't make a difference between being present and listening to her thoughts. She knows that both are happy in this moment. If she wanders away in her imagination or thoughts, she doesn't say to herself that she shouldn't, that she isn't living mindfully. The child knows perfectly well that nothing can happen outside of the present moment, not even thoughts or imagination. My friend, you've been making such a big deal out of living in the present that you forgot what it's really about. It's about paying attention. And that's what children do best. They pay attention to everything. They marvel over everything. And that's what you need to do to live in the present moment. The monk smiles and says, thank you, master. He bows. So go on and pay attention. Be as free as that child and live as joyous as her. That's all you can do as a human being. The moral of the story is that many people believe that being present in life is the highest form of being alive, therefore placing a lot of emphasis on this matter. But what we don't then realize is that being present happens in every moment, but there's no moment when we aren't here. Kids know this because they can think and wander away in their thoughts, yet that isn't a bad thing to them. They can still pay attention to the here and now, only their here and now is sometimes filled with thought and imagination. We cannot be more present or learn to be more present. There is but one simple practice, and that is to pay attention to what's happening right now. If you do, you know that meditation isn't just sitting in a funny position with a sore back and knowing that we can meditate anywhere. For this moment, we are very alive. Let's make the most of it by falling in love with it, because today we live. And isn't that the truth? Today we do live. Again, bringing it back to the theme of the podcast, we're all going to die, and tomorrow we might not live. There's a few things that stop people from being present in the moment. One of the main ones is a lack of compassion, a lack of understanding, a lack of empathy. People do things that piss me off. That's a part of life. Anger is a naturally occurring emotion. There's nothing wrong with anger. Where it becomes a problem is when I get lost in that mental commentary of why did they do that? What did they do? How awful that was for me. This track of obsessive thoughts can go on for a long, long time. And when I stick in that story of what they did and how awful it was, I'm nowhere near the present moment. I'm somewhere else in negative land, you know. I don't have to like everything that everybody does. I need to be honest about my anger, and I need to feel it. But that story about how stupid and pathetic other people are keeps me in my unhappy mind and not in the present moment. So by me focusing on their dumb shit, I'm not focused on my real shit. When I remember what I struggle with, my flaws that are the most embarrassing to me, I dearly wish would go away, I can then get in touch with the part of me that needs compassion, and I can feel how painful it is for others to stand in judgment of my flaws. The secret is that the part of me that needs compassion is the same part of me that can give it to others. Remembering specifically how I'm not perfect helps me have compassion on others, and that works to break the spell of the unhappy story of what they did. Another thing that I guess gets in the way is a lack of gratitude. And I recently read that the brain, being a problem-solving machine, has a natural negativity bias for the purpose of identifying problems. That's great. You know, if you're a caveman and you hear a rustle in the bush, your brain naturally goes, that's a fucking tiger, get out of there. What's not great though is spending all of your time in your head instead of living your life in your immediate experience, in the real moment, instead of up here. When I'm stuck in my head instead of being present, my whole life becomes a long stream of obsessive thoughts about my problems. I focus on what I don't like about a situation, what I don't like about my reaction to the situation. And here's the really important part. Because I'm focusing on my reaction and what I don't like, I'm excluding every other thing that I could be focusing on. The solution, I guess, to that is making the conscious choice to find the good stuff. You've got to identify the things that do work out and identify what you did get right. It makes a huge difference in breaking the spell of everything sucks. This helps me see past my present moment for what it really is. Some stuff I don't like, but mostly lots of good stuff. And acknowledging and being grateful that you have those good things in the first place. And there is always good stuff, I promise. Here's a tip. If you cannot think of any good stuff, perhaps think about what could be worse. Think about what you do have and what could be worse. I assume you have all of your arms and legs You have 2 arms and 2 legs. You have all your limbs. You have your fingers, your toes. I don't know. But, we could live in a much more dangerous part of the world. Even just the thing what I said about before, average age of 82. In the rest of the world, the average is 10 years less. Imagine having 10 years less. That's crazy. And that's the norm for some people, You might not be the happiest, but you're healthy. You might not be the healthiest, but you're not as bad as someone else. You're not in a third world country where the healthcare sucks and they have to drink from puddles. They have to drink moldy water, dirty water. They have no food. I'm not putting any specific group out there, but these people exist. These negativities exist, and there's something to be grateful for, that you're not one of them, that you're not in that position. And it isn't to sound disrespectful. It isn't to put anyone down, but there are some things in life that do suck, and there are some situations that do suck absolutely horribly. And by acknowledging what you're grateful for, sometimes all that is being aware that your life doesn't suck as much as someone else's might. One other thing that really impacts how present you can or can't be in a moment is panic, angst, immediate fear. When I realize that I've been absent from myself, coming back home to my present moment experience can be a struggle. When I realize I'm not here, getting back is hard. And it can take a long time because there's panic in me over the idea that I might have done something wrong, which creates a striving and straining to do it right. Typically, I overthink it, I try way too hard, and then I make some kind of contest, and although I have no idea who I think I'm fucking competing with or what exactly the rush is of when I tell myself things like, hurry up, like get back in the moment, do that shit, go, go, go. Like, once that competition in me is activated, I'm back on the treadmill of thought about how do I fix this, and as with all fucking treadmills, I'm no closer to my destination, which is the present moment. I'm just running on a loop. I overcome this to the best of my ability by relaxing, by breathing. I just did it then. I got too excited about what I was talking about. I may be too anxious and sharing with you that. Impress upon my mind again and again that strain does not actually help me accomplish anything. Good enough is good enough. Perfectionism ruins good things. Perfection, sometimes you can have paralysis by overanalysis. If you try and perfect everything, you just won't start. This podcast is going to be okay. It's going to be average. It might even be good, but it's not going to be great. It's not going to be perfect. I'm not going to edit it properly. The backing track's going to be weird. I'm not even going to have an intro. I don't know where I'm going to put it, but good enough is good enough. And starting is sometimes good enough. There's no contest to win. There's no race to finish. All this kind of panic does, it helps me to further elude the present moment. This process can seem tedious, returning again and again and again to the present moment and then doing it all again tomorrow. But as with all things, it's about perspective. If I can let go of the competitor in me, the one that's trying to achieve, win, do it right, stay awake, it gets much closer to effortless. Making present moment awareness something that is achievement-based only serves to keep us bound to shame. It makes us feel like failures when we inevitably can't stay present 100% of the time. In that crucial moment when I realize I've left the present moment, instead of rejoicing that I'm once again awake by virtue of that knowing, I oftentimes plunge back into an unconsciousness within thoughts like, you failed again to stay present. What a game changer it is upon coming home to my present moment. Instead of hearing, where have you been? I say to myself, welcome back. The purpose of this podcast is to remind you of your mortality, acknowledge your present and be present, follow your dreams, and help you better enjoy your life on a daily basis. Following your dreams is easier said than done, I get that, but to get anywhere, you have to start. That first step is all you need to do. Half of the battle is starting. I've wanted to start a podcast for quite a while now, and I've had to let go of that fear, judgment, failure, and commit to just doing it. What's the worst that can happen? I won't know until I try, and neither will you. Those passions, the dream, the job you wanted to get, the trip you wanted to take, start today, because tomorrow's never guaranteed. I hope you've enjoyed this first episode of We're All Gonna Die. I welcome your feedback, positive and negative, so that I can make this a better experience and refine the podcast moving forward. I would love for you to subscribe so you get notified of new episodes as they come out, and I'll be attempting to release a new episode on a fortnightly basis. If you have any stories that you'd like to share, reach out and get in touch, as I would love to have you on as a guest, or just comment them on our socials. We're all gonna die.nz across the main ones, Facebook, Instagram. Gonna try and figure out how the hell Spotify works as well, YouTube. Thank you so much for listening to this point, and remember, we're all gonna die, so live life to the fullest and start now. Next time, we're going more in depth about everything we've glossed over today in this introductory episode, and I look forward to talking with you very, very soon. I'm Isaac, and we're all gonna...